The Mothers of Real Estate is sponsored by Streetwise Mortgages, an award-winning mortgage brokerage serving clients across Ontario. Book a complimentary consultation or learn more at streetwisemortgages.com.
Thanks for joining us today and welcome to Mothers of Real Estate. Our show is about inspiring and educating women, especially mothers, to explore the possibilities that real estate can offer to get ahead financially and follow your true passion. My friends, my co-hosts, Monika Jazyk and Rachel Oliver are here with me today, and we are going to discuss how to find a good deal and how to pick the right market when investing in real estate. Welcome, ladies, to the show.
Yeah, so exciting.
So, Monika, tell me, how did you know where to invest when you started? What market when you started investing?
No, it stumped me for 2 years. I thought I had to buy the house next door. I could not get out of my head that you do not need to buy homes that are not situated in your neighborhood or homes that you live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. For me, it was more about focusing on a strategy rather than a market. I wanted to figure out what is my day-to-day going to look like. I am totally anti-tenants and toilets. So for me, it was about what am I going to do with these real estate properties, not where am I going to invest.
Right.
Well, that was kind of atypical, though. Most real estate investors find their market. Your strategy is a little bit different, so you have to focus. And your strategy, again, is?
Rent to own. It's quite different from picking property first and figuring out how you're going to cash flow. My property reverses things a little bit, where you pick the family that you're going to help rent to own a home to get into home ownership, overcome their mortgage challenges, and they're going to take ownership over. So it's about them.
Tell us more about them a bit later on, are you?
Absolutely.
Okay, good, because it's a really interesting, it's a fascinating strategy.
So what about you? Did you know what market?
I actually had no clue when I started. I think like most people investing in real estate, I was a total scaredy cat. I had funds from a house that I'd refinanced. I really wanted to steward that money properly. So having no clue how to proceed, I hired a coach, and I hired a super smart woman coach named Julie Broad, who I'm really excited to say is going to be joining us later on in the segment. And she really helped solidify for me how to analyze the economic fundamentals and how to find a market that worked for me personally, like something that fit with my life.
What's interesting, I remember from our first meeting, is that we all actually, at some point in our real estate investing journey, we did training with Julie Broad, and I do truly believe that in some capacity it contributed to our overall success. Wouldn't you agree?
And, well, of course, because it was Julie who brought us together to form more the Mothers of Real Estate. And so now we are always used to joke, remember we used to call Julie our mother.
Yeah, which is pretty hilarious because she's younger than all of us. So, I mean, it's probably safe to say she's more like our cute younger cousin. It's like more appropriate. But she is the reason why we are all together after all. So I think for that reason she holds a pretty special place in our heart, right?
Absolutely. So Julie Broad was the glue, and also the fact that we're all mothers was the glue.
Now that to me is huge, because I remember starting out in this industry, it is a very male-dominated industry. There's few enough women involved, but mothers, there's even less mothers. And as an investor and a mother of 4, I often felt like I was living 2 totally parallel lives. Like, I'd be going from doing $200 million acquisitions to worrying about my laundry.
Right.
And these conversations, I mean, your developer friends and your investor friends, they don't really care about your laundry, but the mommies at Playgroup don't really like to talk about real estate as well.
Well, this is it. I think coming together, meeting you two via Julie, it really sort of solidified to me that there are women who can be in sort of both spaces. Here we were, between the three of us, we had 10 children, right? Like we are people who know what busy means. So we have these real estate businesses on the side and busy personal lives and work lives. And so coming together that way through Julie just reinforced us like the positivity of other women investors and what we can learn from each other. We all had different strategies, so we could learn from one another in the get-go. That to me was just such a huge thing.
That came up for me right away. When we first met, I just remember kind of sinking into that chair at Monika's house thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I met these incredible women 5 years ago when I was getting started. And if you guys were there, part of my journey to real estate investing would have been so much more effective, so much more rewarding. And well, hey, listen, better late than never.
And then that's when you came up with MORE, the acronym, because we used to always just say mothers of real estate, mothers of real estate. And how can we inspire mothers and others?
And that is when we had this idea that we would take our collective brain power, this ginormous brain power, put it together and form the Mothers of Real Estate course, the Confused to Confident online course. And it was kind of like giving birth to our 11th child, wasn't it?
Only less whiny.
Less whiny. So Julie really was the glue that brought us together. She was the impetus for so much from us, but I think most importantly has been the birth of our group and importantly our course, Mothers of Real Estate.
And our mission. I think with our course, we also birthed a mission that we want to help empower so many more other women and families to use real estate investing to create wealth and financial freedom.
Excellent. And in a way that's also time sensitive, but not necessarily the most expensive course, because as we all know, real estate investment courses can be very, very expensive. And they also teach people too much too soon, when really, guys, all you need to know is the fundamentals.
Exactly.
You don't need to know everything to get out the gate, which is why I guess technically it's from confused to confident.
In 7 weeks.
Terrific.
In 7 weeks.
Please stay with us. When we return, Julie Broad, a renowned Canadian real estate investor and author of 2 best-selling books, More Than Cashflow and The Brand New You, will join us by Skype all the way from Los Angeles. You don't want to miss this.
The Mothers of Real Estate is sponsored by Streetwise Mortgages, an award-winning mortgage brokerage serving clients across Ontario. Book a complimentary consultation or learn more at streetwisemortgages.com. Are you looking to build wealth through real estate? Streetwise Mortgages can help you design a financing strategy to achieve your short and long-term investment goals and set up financing in a manner that takes into consideration the legal and accounting structures relating to building wealth. Get a step closer to achieving your goals. To book your complimentary consultation, call 1-800-208-6255 or email info@streetwisemortgages.com.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Julie Broad. Julie is an Amazon overall #1 best-selling author, an International Book Award winner, and recipient of the Beverly Hills Book Award for Best Sales Book. As an entrepreneur and successful real estate investor, she was also awarded the Top 20 Under 40 Award. Her latest venture, Book Launchers, helps entrepreneurs and professionals build their brand and boost their business by writing, publishing, and selling a top-quality book. In 2017, she also became a new mom and moved from Vancouver Island, Canada, to sunny Los Angeles, California. Welcome, Julie. It is absolutely fantastic to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great.
I'm going to kick it off with the first question, if that's okay. So, Julie, your courses, your mentorship, your More Than Cashflow book has inspired so many successful real estate investors, us included, of course. But I really actually don't know what brought you to real estate investing in the first place. What was your big why?
Oh, that's a great question. So really, I was working in a job and I'd only been working there for, I think, about 8 months. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be a really long life of working for somebody else. And I actually really liked it. It was a fun, kind of lively job, but I just couldn't see myself working for somebody else forever. And one of my coworkers actually said, hey, my daughter read this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Maybe you should check it out. And I read it and I just thought, you know what, I got to get my money working for me. Well, I'm working hard for my money, but I need to get my money working hard for me. And I started to kind of look around and nothing made sense. Starting a business at that time, when I was thinking about going back to school, it didn't really make sense to try to do a business and school. But real estate seemed like something I could do on the side, like it would work for me while I was studying and just kind of be there. So I created this plan called Freedom 35. And that was my goal. That was my big why, was to just create an option for myself by the time I was 35. I was 24 at the time. So that was my big why.
Wow, that's a pretty incredible story. And how did you sort of build that business in the beginning? Like, tell us some of the steps.
Well, I read a whole bunch of books. That was kind of my education. So I think there's a book called Multiple Streams of Cash Flow by Robert Allen. I just started consuming, like, and that I know that was my next book that I read, and I just kind of built a plan from that. The problem was so much of the education was American based, and Canada and the US are very different, especially when it comes to real estate and also the approaches that you take. And so, I kind of dove in head first, made a ton of ugly graphic mistakes that made for great stories. But yeah, there wasn't really a great plan to begin with.
Yeah, you mentioned great stories, and I love your book, More Than Just Cash Flow. I was wondering if you could tell us about some of the fun shenanigans that you and Dave went through on your real estate journey.
Yeah, for sure. The first property was great. It was a duplex, good, solid family home in a great neighborhood. And then we bought a condo in Toronto, which was another great property. But after that, we were out of money, and I was then a student, so couldn't qualify for financing. So we had to start getting creative. And that's where we started to get into some of these shenanigans, as you call them. Because, when you get creative, we started learning about no money down deals and buying property with other people's money, which is fine to a point. But, if you go out and find other people's problems, they're still problem properties. Just because they have great numbers doesn't mean they're going to be great properties for you. And so that's what we were doing. We were finding properties we could buy for no money down or that we could get in without having to go to the bank. And we ended up buying a lot of properties that had significant problems that, led to some of the stories like the crack house, the manslaughter and the crack house story that's in More Than Cash Flow.
So is that what you mean, more than cash flow, that when you start investing, using creative strategies in areas that might seem a little dodgy, looking for cash flow, that you might run up against like crackhead problems in your houses? Is that what you mean by that? Is that what your suggestion is?
Exactly. I mean, More Than Cash Flow for me, all the training and all the books I was reading was all about the numbers, right? Everybody was like, okay, this is the kind of return on investment and the GRM. Like they had all these kind of acronyms and they really drove home, like, go get these kind of numbers. And what we found was, the higher the cash flow numbers in a lot of cases, the bigger the problems. And there was so much more to it than just the cash flow.
Right.
And ultimately, I did this to create freedom, right? The Freedom 35 plan. And by buying problem properties, I actually did the opposite, right? We were creating an entirely full-time job for ourselves by buying these horrible properties that required constant attention.
Mm-hmm. That's such an interesting perspective to add to the mix, right?
Absolutely. And, I'm totally anti-tenants and toilets. I will continue to insist on that. And I found it absolutely inspiring that you had such a rough start and such a rough beginning, but then you identified that all of these issues were ultimately preventable. What did you do going forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things. Real estate's forgiving. So that's the one thing. Like, we made some big mistakes. And even the crack house, it wasn't a crack house when we bought it. It became a crack house when the property manager got charged with manslaughter. Yeah, you got to read the book.
Another story.
Yeah, but and that one actually went in the paper. We were charged with fire code violations for that property, and so nobody wanted to buy it. And by then we'd actually moved from Ontario to BC, so we weren't even in the province to try to resolve some of the issues. So it was a big mess. But even with all of that, we still only ended up losing $20,000 or $30,000 because over time, property values do go up. Even in rough areas, they do go up. So real estate can be quite forgiving. So that's the one thing. Like, you don't need to freak out about making mistakes because, you can be forgiven over time. But the other thing was they were preventable. Like buying that crack house, if I had thought clearly about what we wanted in our lives and what we didn't want, and we were more clear about, where we were going with these properties and what problems we were okay having. Because there's always going to be problems. So you just have to choose what your problems will be. And we didn't want those kind of problems, but we didn't know that at the time. So thinking that through, you can prevent a lot of these kind of things. Now, sometimes life just happens. But generally speaking, a lot of stuff is preventable with a better plan.
So we're going to hold you there, Julie. We're going to come back right after this commercial break and jump into some of Julie's strategies for finding great properties in great areas. Stay with us.
The Mothers of Real Estate is sponsored by Streetwise Mortgages, an award-winning mortgage brokerage serving clients across Ontario. Book a complimentary consultation or learn more at streetwisemortgages.com. Do you want to invest in real estate but are too afraid to make costly mistakes? The Mothers of Real Estate online training will give you all the tools and resources you need to take you from confused to confident investor in 7 weeks flat. Visit mothersofrealestate.com today to enroll.
Are you thinking about using some of the equity in your home to invest and build wealth? Not sure about the best ways to take out equity or how to utilize it in a strategic way to invest? At Streetwise Mortgages, we can help you understand your equity takeout options and avoid the costly mistakes. Get a step closer to achieving your goals. To book your complimentary consultation, call 1-800-208-6255 or email info@streetwisemortgages.com. Welcome back to Mothers of Real Estate. Joining us today is Julie Broad, who is with us via Skype from sunny Los Angeles, California. Before our break, Julie was sharing some of her horror stories as a real estate investor and also telling us some tips on how to avoid those problems. Now we're going to jump into how to pick the perfect market.
Yes, picking the perfect market, Julie, is something that seems to confuse a lot of people starting out. How would you suggest that investors really learn how to pick the perfect market?
Well, I think a lot of it comes back to your own goals. But I think in almost every city, you can find little pockets, right? So it's not necessarily about picking the overall market, because if you buy a place that's 7 hours away, now you got to go 7 hours away. But it does depend. Like some people, I know that's actually, something that you've done a lot of and been very successful with it, Monika. But, for me, I want to buy where I can control it as much as possible. So that means really close to where I live. So I look for pockets, submarkets where the fundamentals are good. Ideally, the home prices are below the average, but the rents are very similar to the other areas. And by doing that, I can have it close by and then find areas that have opportunity for growth.
Can you talk about some of the other fundamentals that people kind of more economic driven?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we didn't do as much that. It was really focused on those numbers and finding the pockets and then finding neighborhoods that were convenient. And then, population growth was definitely a factor for the city. But again, I was more worried about the pockets. So I wanted there to be jobs nearby. But public transportation, good schools, those were some of the things that I was really focused on to attract the kind of tenant that we wanted. And ideally, we were looking for young families that were going to stay there for years and years.
So do you espouse a kind of boots to the ground approach to finding that submarket, like going to hang out locally? How do you feel like you get to know those submarkets?
Yeah, we would walk our dog around them.
Right.
Did you approach strangers and ask them questions?
Yeah, we did. Just, hey, we're thinking of buying a house in this area. What do you think of living here? Do you see any crime? What are the schools like? We just have like open conversations with people and learn way more than you can learn by researching.
Yeah, we have a lot of neighborhoods. We'll tell people, our investors, walk your dogs, walk your kids, get to know the areas, like pretend that you live there, because ideally you're going to have tenants who live in these areas. So if you could put yourself in the view of a tenant, I think that's a very powerful position as an investor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that you have such an amazing portfolio of income properties, I suspect you're moving on to new things that excite you, things that you're passionate about. So what are you up to in 2018?
Yeah, well, we've moved to Los Angeles, so my husband can pursue a career as an actor. So that's the beauty of real estate. It can allow you to pursue your dreams. And writing and books have always been my thing. So I have a new company called Book Launchers, and we help people write and publish and sell nonfiction books. And LA we couldn't be happier with the hotbed of talent and opportunity in LA. I have Emmy award-winning writers and New York Times bestselling PR people on my team at Book Launchers. So it's pretty exciting.
That's incredible to see the transformation, or just the journey from smallish town Vancouver, taking all the way down to LA, and using real estate as that sort of springboard to accomplish all those goals, and to see you so successful in your new business. So just on behalf of Monika and Rachel, I want to thank you so much, Julie, for one, inspiring us, which you did, and for taking the time out of your busy schedule. You've sandwiched us in between your busy days. So taking the time to be with us today to share share your wisdom, and we wish you every success with book launchers. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks so much,
Thank you,
you
Julie.
guys.
Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
The Mothers of Real Estate is sponsored by Streetwise Mortgages, an award-winning mortgage brokerage serving clients across Ontario. Book a complimentary consultation or learn more at streetwisemortgages.com. Are you looking to build wealth through real estate? Streetwise Mortgages can help you design a financing strategy to achieve your short and long-term investment goals and set up financing in a manner that takes into consideration the legal and accounting structures relating to building wealth. Get a step closer to achieving your goals. To book your complimentary consultation, call 1-800-208-6255 or email info@streetwisemortgages.com.
Welcome back to the Mothers of Real Estate. Today we had the honor of having both our friend and mentor Julie Broad share her experience and words of wisdom on how to pick the perfect market and make money every month. You know what I found so interesting about talking to Julie was just that idea about how troublesome chasing cash flow can be. How sometimes we feel like the numbers are all that matters, but really it's not about the numbers. It's more about picking something that works for you.
Absolutely.
And for me, you know, her openness and honesty about where things went sideways, rather than painting a rosy picture, because the reality is we do make mistakes, we are going to falter, but it's what you do when that happens, how you pick yourself up and dust yourself off. That's what really matters, and I love that about her.
Absolutely. Like the last thing you want to do in this industry is learn from someone who hasn't made mistakes, because what if you're their first mistake? You'd be like, And
Well, exactly. I mean, wouldn't you want to avoid the crack house mistake that Julie made? I'm perfectly happy to have learned what not to do in that department from
and you'll
her.
probably never have a property manager charged for manslaughter because of Julie. See why she's our mother? Like what she went through for us? Incredible. But you know what? When I learned our real estate training, similar to what Julie learned, and I was chasing just the cash flow, and that's what they teach a lot of people, that really led to huge amount of mistakes for us and really almost caused us to lose everything. So fortunately, we met Julie along the way and actually learned about these markets and submarkets and created real estate investment models. And that is the correct way really to move forward.
Right, and then that, of course, those models, those systems that you learned for Julie, those were the inspiration for us in our course on how to train people to find the right market, where to train your attention, where to focus your attention, and how to select those markets, right?
The whole notion of the submarket was an aha moment for me when I took her training, and we integrated that into our course. And the submarket principle is so fascinating. Focus on those leading markets, but don't buy in the expensive leading market. Buy kind of next door to it, and you can still charge the premium rents, but you're getting in at a lower priced property. Wow, that was like a huge aha moment for me when I took her training. I'm so glad we included that.
Yeah, and mainly because they know, once again, they know the fundamentals. They know how to do their numbers. They know what constitutes an area with strong economic fundamentals, and they know how to pick their market.
Right, and I don't know about you girls, but do you have people that come up to you, Monika, Rachel, say, tell me what market I should invest in. Tell me where to invest.
I refuse to answer.
And so
I don't answer.
What I love most about training in our course is that if we had a crystal ball, like who wouldn't be using the crystal ball, right? But the fact of the matter is that picking a market has to work for you. So I don't want to invest next to my Uncle Tim for whatever reason, but you might. And so really, I think it's all about learning smartly from someone like Julie, like we did, or us teaching in our course, that the market fundamentals have to make sense for you, but there's tracks to follow.
And it's also dependent on the type of lifestyle you want to lead and how much dependence you want to have on property managers. All of those dynamics come into the consideration, and Julie teaches us how to run it as a business. And in fact, our course follows through with that as well.
And if we could empower more women and teach them these basic fundamentals, teach them how to pick these markets and submarkets, and just a strategy that works for them.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, I mean, I think the beauty of us working together is we're these team of women with such support for one another, and nothing makes me feel better than at the end of the day knowing that we've packaged up some of our women to be able to kind of give birth to this baby, send other women out into the world with the skills that they're going to need to follow in a path that makes sense to them.
Exactly, and one of the best places that I would recommend for anyone who's considering getting started, Julie has actually addressed this in her book, More Than Cashflow. She gives very real-world tips on how to get started if you're a woman and a would-be investor. And I really like the fact that she distinguished some of the things that women need in those tips over what the general population could relate to.
Unfortunately, we are already out of time. Thank you for joining us today. For more information about our online training, please visit mothersofrealestate.com.
The Mothers of Real Estate is sponsored by Streetwise Mortgages, an award-winning mortgage brokerage serving clients across Ontario. Book a complimentary consultation or learn more at streetwisemortgages.com.